One of my favorite quotes I have reinterpreted to mean more to me in the restaurant and bar business, and that is that if you have a guest that leaves, then in 1 month, 2 months, 2 years, they're going to forget what they had. But if I do my job the right way, they will always remember how I made them feel. My name is Bob Peters. I am the Beverage Director for Built On Hospitality. I am a bartender, a server, an ice getter, a lime cutter, a grocery getter, a janitor, but most importantly, I am a father and a husband. It's pretty interesting. I grew up here in Charlotte as the youngest of four. I have two older brothers and an older sister. And my parents used to have guests over to the house all the time. They were very famous for their dinner parties. And when you got to the front door, my dad couldn't get a drink in your hand fast enough. And my mother was an amazing, amazing cook. So people who wanted to come over, there was plenty of people all the time. And I was teeny tiny. I was probably, I don't know, I want to say under 8 probably. And my parents told me that you're welcome to hang out at dinner. You're welcome to eat with us. But I had to eat what they were eating, of course. And I also had to, well, I was encouraged to speak, of course, but it had to be something relevant. I couldn't talk about G.I. Joe when they were talking about global politics. So I learned how to listen pretty well at an early age. And I also learned the art of conversation, which is really kind of interesting. I appreciate good food, obviously, and much after I was 8, I learned to appreciate good drinks. But that, I think, is probably where it all began. If you fast forward a couple years from there, I was behind a bar and was having a difficult time getting an order from customers because I was starting to do some elevated things at that point. And sometimes people didn't understand why these cocktails were different before they tasted them. So they typically wanted to drink their vodka soda or their gin and tonic or whatever it was, which is understandable, and I get it. However, I started to think back, how would my mom or dad have done that? You know, if they were a guest in my living room and I was trying to make them a special cocktail, I probably wouldn't just say, "What are you having?" I would say, "This is really interesting. This is cool. This is delicious. I've been working on this and you got to try this." And so at a certain point, I just started talking to people kind of like I knew them already. Like they were my friends already and I loved them already. And I think that was a big change in how people felt and how I made them feel, because I honestly cared about if they were happy, if they were enjoying that experience, if they didn't like their drink, if they did like their drink, if they loved it, you know. And then sometimes if they loved it, then I could give them something a little similar or what I thought they liked particularly about that cocktail, whether it was spicy or savory or sweet or fruity or weird or whatever it was. Then I could start to make that next drink a little bit more of who they are instead of what I wanted them to drink. When I started to put myself in my guest's shoes or seat, a bar stool, I thought that ordering might be a part of the difficult process and a bit intimidating sometimes. So again, if I told myself that this was the most important person ever in my life that was sitting in front of me, and how do I make them feel comfortable and relaxed and ready to enjoy an experience, I started thinking, well, how do you make this easy for them? How do you make this ordering process that might be intimidating, like bite-sized. So then I started asking people something that I couldn't believe that I didn't do before. Like I would ask people, do you like vodka? Do you like gin? Do you like bourbon? Do you like rum? Are you familiar with mezcal? Do you like bitter stuff? Do you like sweet stuff? And so typically they would say, I like bourbon, or I like tequila or vodka, whatever it was. And then so that takes this big giant area of a possible order and it gets it really quickly down to something easier and more easy to manage. So then it's like, do you want something that's boozy, or do you want something that's a little bit more refreshing? And so now you give them a right turn and a left turn, and then they pick their own journey. And then all of a sudden you kind of know what you want to make them in your mind. And I think just that short thing that I told you about was where I started to understand their experience a little bit more and how I could help and make them feel comfortable and ultimately at home. Currently, in my present position as beverage director for Built On Hospitality, I have a really fun, very open schedule, but my favorite days are days when I get to go into the restaurants. For instance, going into the Goodyear House is always a great day. They have an amazing staff over there. Front and back of the house are great people, and they all care, which makes my job ultimately easier. But I absolutely and ultimately enjoy still the same thing I did when I was behind the bar the whole time, which is like sitting there and watching somebody order and then get like a really great drink. And then they put their lips to it and they take that first sip, and you can kind of see like their eyes roll back in their head just a little bit. That I feel like I did that to them, you know, in the most polite way. But I really enjoy watching people in that moment, just that brief moment where everything is kind of perfect and they're easily recognizably happy and content with all things in the world at that moment. And that is still one of my favorite parts of my job. And when I have helped maybe one of the servers or the bartenders help with some of those things that people don't think about sometimes, like probably how about this, call it anticipating your guest needs. And I know that sounds kind of corny, but you know, if you're at my house, that's what I want to do. You know, like if we're sitting out on the back deck or something like that, and it's hot outside and you've got a nice drink in your hand and it's sweating, like, you know, you should have like something to wipe your hands on, you know, like something for the drink. And so that to me can mean something as simple as giving somebody 2 napkins at the beginning of their ordering process, one for the glass and then one extra that they can wipe their hands on. Or if they're, I don't know, chewing gum, then they can put their gum in and they still have their sort of coaster. Like that to me is one of those things that probably most people won't see or notice, but it just makes everything easier, you know, and it makes their experience just that little bit better. I enjoy that. I've been thinking a lot about my creative process and how that's going to move forward at Chiefs, which is the cocktail bar that's going to be opening hopefully not too far away from here. And I think a part of it is me being comfortable in what I love and what I'm good at, which is very seasonal local ingredients. And I love my local spirits. But I also like weird stuff. And that I think is a part of my creative process, is like taking a little something familiar and also something weird or unexpected and kind of marrying those two things together, but doing it in a way where the guest is comfortable and they don't get too freaked out because you're using, I don't know, alien ears in their drink. And that part that makes them feel comfortable is one of my main goals to make people feel at home and relaxed and kind of like they're in their living room or my actual living room or whatever, because I really want it to feel that way and feel homey, and for everybody to feel welcome and to feel at peace, and but I know this sounds corny too, but loved, like honestly loved. If you want to see a little bit more about what we're doing over at Built on Hospitality or what's happening at Chiefs, probably the easiest place to go is builtonhospitality.com. That's a landing page for all of our restaurants and all of the concepts that are happening right now. If you want to check out what's happening at Chiefs, that is Chiefs_NoDa on Instagram. And if you want to see a little bit more of what I have done in the past or am moving forward with, then that's Bob_Peters on the Instagram.